for the next session, we're actually going to have a panel on how to make Switzerland one of the core hubs for DePIN, and we're going to have Stéphanie Fuchs, who is going to be moderating the panel, and she's a very vocal and active leader in the DePIN and blockchain space, and she has a strong background in national and international taxation, as well as blockchain and emerging technologies. So with that said, Stéphanie, I welcome you on stage. Thank you.
Well, hello everybody. Welcome to our wonderful panel after lunch. Actually, I would like to already announce my speaker and ask them to come on stage. We only have 30 minutes and we have a very dynamic discussion ahead of us. So, first of all, Thomas Nigg, co-founder of onocoy, I think. And some applause, please, for all of them. Then we have Diana Lafita, a regulatory and legal tech specialist from MLL Legal, and a dear former colleague, and applause. Make them feel welcome on the stage, please. And last but not least, Salvatore Luciano Furnari, coming here from Italy, also a legal specialist, and he will give a European perspective. So, I will actually ask my panelists to introduce themselves briefly in a moment. And I already have a first question to warm us all up, and that you will already see. We already had a discussion, and I can tell you, each and every one of them has a clear opinion, and you are looking at a treat now. And my first question is actually, now is Switzerland the natural home for DePIN? And I would also add maybe AI, and the follow-up already for each of you to then also give us a few sentences. What does Switzerland have to do to become or remain this natural home? And I would ask, Thomas, while you have the mic, please, a few words about yourself and an answer to that.
I'm an old guy from the GPS industry and a relatively new guy in the DePIN space. However, a friend of mine told me that in crypto, years count about 7 times as fast. So it's then calculating this way, it's about on par. I have gotten into crypto or DePIN because we ran into a problem which we were not able to solve the traditional way. And looking at Helium, we saw this is a way to solve it, and that's what we are doing now. Yes, so at onocoy, we built this decentralized infrastructure network. We're in the midst of doing it, as you've heard from Daniel. And I'm looking more at the organizational side. I've also strongly pushed for the token launch, which we completed just about 2 months ago. Yeah, pretty much 2 months ago. And so talking about Switzerland as a DePIN hub, I think why not Switzerland, should this happen? We have the industrial basis for physical infrastructure. We have a true large university network where all the theoretical foundation is laid. We have a habit of bringing these two things together. So generally speaking, yes, we should be there. But when I look at our journey, then I have to say there are a few missing things that really present major hurdles. We ran into regulatory topics. So we had to change our token model, well, call it once, formally massively. It's not a major one, just because it would not have worked in Switzerland. And what we have now is, well, we cannot name it. So we have to work around it. We also got support from the government institutions in funding, But then when they really saw what we did, they paddled back. So also there, the understanding of what crypto means in a physical infrastructure world is not there. So I think we have to fix that, and then Switzerland is the ideal place for it.
So I can briefly summarize already. I think there were very good points already, and we will come back to them. First of all, experienced, not old, of course. And I think two things. Yes, infrastructure. When we talk about DePIN, we have to keep in mind now we also talk about infrastructure. A very key point also that we will cover from a regulatory perspective that gives it another dynamic and some other perspectives, of course. And we already heard about the hurdles that we will talk about just in a minute. And now it will be interesting to hear from a Swiss lawyer and regulatory specialist a bit more about Switzerland. Now, is it the hub? And a few words about you, Diana, as well, please.
Thank you very much, Stephanie, for the kind introduction. So yes, my background is Swiss regulations, and I have more or less 10 years experience in this field. And in the past, I would say also 5 years, very much specialized in fintech area. So yeah, my daily life is about exchanging with the regulator, trying to understand the regulator, trying to understand how much the regulator understands of technology. And especially also, I think the key part here is also understanding the risks of every technology, because only then you're in the position to explain to the regulator what kind of risks do we have here. And in Switzerland, I think we were lucky because the whole governmental policies already a long time ago were focused on supporting innovation, on trying to create this innovation hub, be it in the fintech space, be it in other technological areas. So Switzerland is already well known in this space. And actually, our next goal is to make sure that we maintain this position, that we keep this ecosystem, including the technological part at the university side that my colleague was mentioning, but also the whole policy-making aspects. There, for me, I have to say that in the past years, there were some slight shifts where the regulator was more mirroring what's happening in the EU and very less looking at what was actually the strategy that Switzerland had defined for itself, and actually as a separate democracy, being able to define where Switzerland is going and not just copy-pasting what others are doing. This is a bit the challenge that Switzerland is facing right now. It's not an easy challenge, but I am also confident that we will make it. And for me, like the slogan that I wanted to mention before I pass the mic is actually that I think DePIN and the whole technology applied with blockchain and AI, I think this will actually be extremely disruptive in the financial markets. And then we can afterwards discuss why.
Oh, yes, we will. Thank you very much, Diana. So we already heard two very important perspectives. Now we also heard a bit already where the journey is going, what we need, and the unique Swiss way. And now keep this in mind, because we also have here the chance to have the European and Italian perspective on it. And this will be very interesting to hear now also from your perspective, because our question was, is Switzerland? So now it will be great to hear from you, Salvatore.
Yeah, this is a kind of tricky question because, why you ask?
And a few words about yourself first.
Yeah, I'm actually a lawyer and also a researcher on the DeFi blockchain in the University of Tor Vergata in Rome. And so, I have this opportunity to see blockchain and DeFi stuff, both from a practical perspective, working with my clients, and also from a theoretical perspective, working with my professor. And it's kind of difficult to making both talk because someone think DeFi is something they want other kind of results. This is also a tricky question for me, and I do not want to feel that I want to betray Italy or Europe, but actually I think that I I can give some support on this question, saying that yeah, Switzerland has the fortune not to be Europe, in a sense that in Europe we are 28 country that have to speak, have to before making something they have to agree, all of them. So this bring with it a lot of path dependency from before regulation, and we have what we have seen with MiCAR, in which they just copy pasted the MiFID regulation, and when you want to change that, you have to bring at the table 28 people. This is something that maybe from this point of view, Switzerland has an advantage on that. If, as everyone says, decide to move, to leave them alone and to do innovation from this point of view. Maybe there is also another point why Switzerland, and in saying that, I'm stealing a suggestion, an idea of Mark while talking during lunch. Here there is a lot of density of people talking about the same things. While in Europe, to talk about DePIN, maybe you have to connect people from Germany, Italy, you have to put all the people in the same place. It's kind of difficult. Here you have the opportunity to meet more times here and work together and do kind of real innovation. So I think this is also a cool opportunity that Switzerland has.
Wonderful, thank you very much, Salvatore. I think, isn't this wonderful to hear also from a European perspective, right? And the sentence, well, you're lucky you're not EU. I mean, thank you very much. I think I didn't promise too much. I told you they have an opinion, and make sure you discuss with them later on as well. And maybe Thomas, now we can continue this again and start with the practical perspective. Now we've heard a lot of chances in Switzerland, maybe also from your experience again. Now here in Switzerland, you're launching this project, one of the greatest projects we see at the moment. I must say it's really amazing what you're doing. I think it would be interesting to hear a bit more concrete also for the audience from you as a practical perspective. Now here in Switzerland, what to do, what are the hurdles, what are the chances, also what Salvatore said before, if you also see this from a practical angle. And then afterwards we hear again from Diana and Salvatore also a bit more also from the regulatory perspective, maybe what's going on, what's going in the right direction, and a bit more granular also. I will give you a few examples then also how to frame this.
So when we started plus minus 3 years ago, obviously we knew the infrastructure side of it because we've been there forever. We teamed up with people with blockchain experience. We devised a token model, and that went pretty well. We also got support. We were pretty fast in getting this getting a tax ruling in Switzerland. So that process was pretty good. Obviously, what helps is that we have a cluster here, as Salvatore says. It's a crypto cluster, so the knowledge is there. We found the people for this. We have the academic background here. That went really well. But when we then moved on and wanted to bring the token to the market, so launch it, we ran into problems. We applied a burn and mint model, sort of standard, and figured out this is not doable because of AML interpretation. I call it interpretation. I don't think it's so much.
It's okay.
It's rules, and essentially we would have to qualify each and every trader on a decentralized exchange according to AML law. Now, guess what? We had to change it. That's not doable. Now we're with a similar, so economically it's almost identical, but it's now a buyback and burn model, which is also good, which other companies do actively use, GeoNet and many others in the DePIN space. But then again, we cannot call the child by its name because, again, it would be a payment token and then AML law. So we had to find now names, etc. A deflationary two-token model. We cannot make promises that we buy back tokens. We can only report that we did it. But this is sort of weak for somebody investing in hardware and wanting to see how this works. Yeah, we made a buyback, so that's not credible. We do now do it this way because there ain't no other way. But I mean, please help us and give us a regulation that fits to decentralized physical infrastructure. I mean, we're bridging two worlds here. We have the Web 2 world. They don't want to buy tokens. They don't necessarily want to hold tokens. They want the benefit from our token economy, but they don't want to be involved. And then we have the mining or Web3 side. They obviously need it. We need the token economy here. And we're bridging it, but we're sort of semi-legal. It's always a balance in how we phrase things. If we use the wrong words, we're on the wrong side of the borderline. That's not satisfactory. And I mean, that's sort of a different, call it interpretation as I understand it. If we took DePIN serious, we would simply get a rule work that works for that space. We do have a rule that works for other crypto stuff, but I don't think it works for DePIN today.
Okay, so we heard. So yes, Switzerland, yeah, home, but we are in the regulatory world, and there seem to be a few questions, Diana. Now we heard it about wording. You're doing it. You're not allowed to call it this way. So you're not FINMA. You are actually advising on it. But can you give us some guidance here and some explanations and where we are going and where this comes from?
Yes, so I fully understand the situation. We have this situation with many clients, and the main issue is, and I'm coming here from the explanation on the regulatory side. So the main issue is when you promise something to other people. So that's more or less, in a very simple manner, how it all starts. So as soon as you promise, you will give something in exchange, you promise you will pay back, you promise you will do something, then you are more or less already having a financial instrument in your hands. And so it doesn't matter how you do that, how much it is, but you are starting to promise to give something, to promise that this may have a value. And then you're kept into the regulations. And then the question is more, well, is it a share? Is it a bond? Are we issuing instruments here? And also on the AML side, of course, as soon as you're in the middle of those transactions that you're buying, you're selling, you're already considered a financial intermediary. And that's also one of the problems that we had in the recent years, that FINMA considered that even the secondary market trading obliged you to identify every buyer and every seller, and then that's completely impossible for a decentralized infrastructure. So that's a problem. We have this problem, and so to the extent that regulation will stay like this, we will have to navigate that, and maybe, as you said, change your product in a way that it fits to the regulations. On the other side, my belief is also that by using DePIN and by using this technology, you might also try to go around, and it doesn't work for every business, but it can work for certain businesses to try to go around and go directly to the ownership of things. And there are many ways to do that, but trying to overcome these promises and going directly to the assets. And as soon as you go to direct ownership of assets, of real-world assets, you start to go away from the issuer, go away from the custody, and go away from the financial market risks, and therefore also regulations. But I'm aware this is not easy, and of course, I think that Switzerland could also develop some other ways to help decentralized systems to be more successful. And also one of the other problems that it has for startups, for new companies, of course, the withholding taxes is a big issue. So that for that I have to send everyone to Stephanie.
Yes, me.
Of course. And on the technology side, we will discuss later. There are also a few things that could be improved.
Absolutely. Maybe Diana, while you still have the microphone, I would always like to go back also a bit to the opportunities. Now we heard about the hurdles. Just briefly before I give to Salvatore again, maybe some tips now for also the entrepreneurs here that they don't just leave the panel because they are very sad and think it's not doable. It is doable. Do you have some tips how to? We heard from Thomas how they did it. Yes, they have creative solutions. They make it work. So it is doable. So maybe just if you're in these situations, one or two things.
So it's not all lost. You're right. The tips. I
Thank
think
you.
the Swiss system was shaped some years ago with the DLT law, and it was really thought to change the system to make it work for tokenization, to make it work for transfers on the blockchain, and to make it work also on the financial market. And that's why this is already possible. Now we have experience with that, and it's also public. We have been advising in recent transactions where, for instance, stock shares and bonds that are traded, for instance, in different stock exchanges have been tokenized. And so this, for instance, this kind of operations and transactions are functioning very well at the moment, and they are very successful because everyone that is into crypto would like to, of course, use this kind of tokens because they are into crypto. That means they have, for instance, Bitcoin or USDC or different payment tokens. They want to use them to invest, and that's why they are very interested to have tokens that are actually accessible to be able to pay with payment tokens or with crypto, and to be able to do everything on a crypto space. And that's why these solutions, for instance, work already very well. And what we do is that we apply Swiss law, because Swiss law is extremely clear in this situation. So you have very high level of legal certainty. So when you have the contract, you know this is going to work, this is waterproof. We have a specific legal provision that has been drafted for these tokens to be functioning as shares, as financial instruments. They can be transferred, and we have the legal certainty that this is secure. And this is something that many jurisdictions don't have developed. So that's actually the main point of Swiss regulations. We also have now the DLT trading venues. Those, for instance, the BX Digital Exchange. That's actually been created for trading tokenized securities. So we are there also, Switzerland, very much on the front.
Wonderful. So we hear it is doable, and quite a few things are going in the right direction already. And now it will be very interesting to hear your perspective, Salvatore, your experience also. How is it going in the EU and in Italy, actually, to also give a bit the broader perspective?
Yeah, in Italy it's kind of, we can say it's kind of going as Thomas says. I had lots of clients that wanted to do stuff, and my suggestion was, okay, you can do it in Italy, you do it at the beginning also in Switzerland. Now also Switzerland has like becoming more requesting with ML. So what they do by themselves is to go in other jurisdiction that is not EU, that is not Italy, is actually offshore. And yes, there is the offshore or also other places. But there is the problem that Diana kind of expressed. Okay, if you stay in EU, if you stay in Switzerland, you have set rules, but you have to respect those rules. If you go out there, in other places. Maybe you do not have those specific rules, but if something happens and you have to go to a judge, you are not sure that the judge will give you a fair decision. So this is a kind of complicated situation. Maybe for some giveaway, there are two possible paths that could be kind of explored. One is going full decentralized. Full decentralized has to be, and this is actually the only rules in European legislation in which there is no unapplicable rule. Although for some ML purposes, still, if you are in the middle of the situation, you have to do some ML reporting. But apart of that, the other solution is to actually making a regulator understanding the innovation. And how to do that? You do that doing events like this, in which innovation stuff are explored, are cracked. Every piece of this innovation is explained. Because in regulation, the problem is a regulation of usually path dependency. So I, as a regulator, know how to regulate stuff. So if there is something new, I used to put the same rule that I used before, because for the past I knew that they worked. But you are not evaluating the difference that is here. So for Thomas' problem, okay, we have for Thomas applies rules that applies to financial instruments. But those rules on financial instruments exist because 100 years ago, people used to steal money to other people, not keeping promises. But now, promises can be kept using blockchain. So if I program a smart contract to say, if I receive money, you have to give this back, there is no way that a promise can be broken. So this is a kind of new stuff that the regulator do not take in consideration when they treat a white paper as a prospectus for financial instrument. So regulator need to understand things, and we need to explain those to regulator.
I think that's now actually, yes, if you take a step back, I think that's really the point, regulation and technology, right? And the regulators, and do they understand it? But before I have another question, I would like to briefly, I have 2 minutes, so I would like to open up briefly. Are there questions from the audience when we have these beautiful, amazing speakers here? You may also talk to them afterwards, but is there a question you would like to raise? Yes, please. We have a mic, you can have the moderator mic.
Maybe a question for Diana. You mentioned that basically you would want to go directly to the ownership of the assets. And so I was just curious about like an example of that. Is that the tokenization that you mentioned, or if you could, give another example in that area?
So the main example that I always give, and maybe it's too complicated if you're not in the financial space, but one of the examples that you can use is, for instance, a fund. So you know what is a fund? A collective investment scheme. Normally you have different assets put into a vehicle. And so why do you need this vehicle normally? Well, you need it because if every single person would like to invest his money, and this person would need an asset manager for himself to invest his money in a way that is professional. So what do people do actually? They say, okay, I put my money into a fund, and I expect that the fund manager would do a good job. And actually it's more efficient because the funds normally have a team, and the fund manager has a team, and they have the research, they have their know-how, they have their service providers, and they are priced for everyone, so on a massive pricing. So that means that for me individually, it's only a very small piece of the price that I am paying. Of course, I have the management fees, etc. But this is the way it was used to work until now. And now the thing, what possibilities do you have with crypto, only with crypto and with blockchain? Well, everyone could now say, if I actually instead of putting everything in this fund, I actually can link my wallet. I can have a wallet as an investor. I can have it on the blockchain. And actually, I can own a very small piece of the assets. And actually, I can co-own assets directly by tokenizing them. And I can directly own the asset without actually needing the fund. So I already get rid of the fund, because in my wallet, I can directly have very little small tokens that can represent parts of the assets. That's one point. So with this, I actually get rid of the whole vehicle in the middle. And of course, you need still an advisor, but this can be an external advisor that can tell you how to invest your assets, what kind of assets would you like to buy. But it also can be driven by AI, and it's much more efficient, and it's much more individualized. So every single investor has different needs. Why to put them all in the same box? Why to use the same strategy? Well, actually, everyone has individualized needs. And then if you want to still link it with DePIN, you could also then say, well, instead of investing in shares, I can invest in assets. And then it's even easier, because then I don't have any vehicle in the middle. I don't have the fund, and I don't have the company or whatever it is that I'm investing in. I'm investing in assets. Of course, I cannot do this for everything, but I can have part of my investments can be assets. Part of it can be shares. But at least DePIN gives you this possibility. You can directly invest in assets. You can co-own, for instance, art. You can co-own, for instance, a piece of art.
Go for the asset, yes. Sorry, because we are running out of time, but I think that's a very good point from Diana. You mentioned it before already, right? I think we are looking at new ways of investing, and I think that's exactly the point, how to make it work, although we see from a regulator perspective there are hurdles, but it's all doable. And I think, yes, of course, I hope natural home for DePIN, it has to be Switzerland. And I would like to thank my wonderful panel here. Please make sure you discuss with them and continue the discussion. They are extremely knowledgeable. Thank you, Thomas, Diana, Salvatore. I learned a lot again. Thank you very much, and a huge round of applause, please.